Okay, so we're almost about time. Let's set up a little bit more about people. So this is a professional development series that we do. So you also get a professional development certificate for this. You'll receive an email where you can just request it after the session. You should be able to get it, people who are attending it. You'll also receive a recording of this session on the email. And we also have exclusive giveaway guides or ebooks or a lot of time like so today's there is going to be an ebook in terms of how to build your multi-center blueprint with that. And then also people who are attending them, we have done this workshop, closed workshops also there. So you also get exclusive invite for those webinars, webinars, workshop that we do. So yeah. With that, let me start with the introduction. So we have two guests today, Tim Sheldon, who has been helping us building this building this initiative of doing these webinars and events, podcasts that we have been doing. I think Tim has, if not thousands, at least hundreds plus school leaders, especially in the Montessori space, helping them building this organization, building the team, leadership, cultures around it, and have closely worked in this areas of the topic that we're going to touch on. And then we have Isabel, who has been also in as a person in the shoes of being as a managing director there, executive director there, running multi-center operations, part of big brands like Bright Horizon, the Learning Experience Group, Prodigy Learning. She will have lot to fill in today in terms of the real cases. And if I'm not wrong, Isabel, you have been in the shoes where the you started from setting up the building itself, then the curriculum, hiring the first team, and also
Yes, that is
scaling it.
correct. 100%. Started definitely from scratch, building up, getting permits,
Ah,
um,
yeah.
even to the point where we didn't even have a curriculum. We had to build one. So definitely, I've been in those shoes.
And if I look at the numbers put on the slide, so we have 60 plus years of experience today in room with you two coming on the table today. So I'm looking forward to it. Before we jump on and hand over to you and Tim to kind of lead this, just a small introduction as what Illumine is. I'll run a small video to get to know what Illumine role in this and what Illumine does. Yeah.
With the chaos of endless tasks every day, childcare centers need a simpler way forward, and that's exactly what illumine delivers. Powered by AI, built for childcare, parent communication has become more important than ever. With 2 taps, teachers can record meals, naps, and activities. Photos and updates reach parents instantly, translated into their language. No more end of day rush, just real time engagement that builds trust. And while parents stay connected, finances run smoothly too. Invoices generate automatically. Tuition adapts to any schedule, weekly, monthly, or wraparound. Subsidies and co-pays balance without effort. Everyone sees a clear ledger that makes decisions easier. With billing handled, the next focus is growth and welcoming new families. Enquiries flow into a single pipeline, never lost or overlooked. Illumine highlights interested prospects, automates replies, and helps centers grow enrollment with ease. Once families are enrolled, daily operations stay simple. Pin check-ins and check-outs record every student arrival and staff shift in real time. Dashboards flag ratio gaps instantly, while audit trails keep directors inspection ready without stress. Behind the scenes, compliance is always covered, from incident reports to student records. Everything is stored, sorted, and flagged if incomplete. AI ensures accuracy and consistency at every step. With AI at your side at every step, you gain time, clarity, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters, the children.
Thanks a
Very
lot
nice.
for watching this. Yeah, so like this is Illumine started with me, Saurabh and Purva, more as like as a curiosity as a parent wanted to help uh, myself to understand what my child is learning, but also to other parents out there. And what I realized in this space, a lot of people come for passion, and not only the solution offering helps, you have to also handhold and help in terms of implementing this solution so that you can really solve their challenges. And that's where we stand out. Like if you talk to any of our customers or support, we make sure that it's not just giving you a solution and leaving you to the chatbots or AI. There we come as a human and help you out. That's where we stand out. So with that, I'll move over to the topic today, which is how to grow about building multi-center operation, how to build that blueprint and grow there. So over to you, Tim. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Glad to, as always. So, today, what we're talking about is those of you who either are already running a network or chain of schools, multi centers, or whether you're ready to begin to grow. And there's a lot of different aspects of that. As always, we have to look at schools holistically. We look at the program, we look at the facilities, we look at finances, we look at recruitment and marketing and building a community and all the different things of building a happy, harmonious team. And I think you'll agree, once again, if an individual school or center is focused on the idea of clarity, of being consistent from class to class, from level to level, from month to month, from year to year, so a parent experience and a child's experience is seamless throughout the school. When you grow to a second center, a third center, 100 center, you really need to have brand coherency. Because what we're doing is not only providing a service, we're providing a support to a family's life, and we're providing ideally a lifestyle product, a lifestyle service. Right, Isabel?
Absolutely.
We're dealing with the things that they love the most, their money and their child, not in that order. So the bottom line is we have to do this seamlessly as we grow. Next slide. So when you begin to grow and you expand, you've got to ask yourself, one, are we ready? Are we really ready to take on yet one more center, whether it's our first additional center or whether it's our 101st center? Are we ready to do one more? Will the model that we're trying to implement at the center number one or at the existing centers, is it really working correctly? Can we scale it up so that we get the same kind of experience at our next center? And what's it going to take for that to happen? Because a school or a center is all about people. We have to gather the right people. We have to onboard them. We have to train them. We have to make sure that the policies, procedure, and culture are not only written down in a book, they're deeply ingrained in people's souls. It's the culture in which we live. And finally, we've got to ask ourselves, if we take on another center, are we going to make life better or are we going to make it worse? In other words, is this going to actually help us or just be a burden that we're trying to fix? So growth is exciting, but expansion, thank you, but expansion is going to be a challenge to leadership. And some people like Isabel, you've dealt with, I think, 12 centers at a time.
Mm-hmm.
A
So I
lot
think that
juggling.
it is. It's a lot of juggling, and I think that the biggest confusion is that when you ask these questions is you run one center operationally and you're involved in it from the beginning to the end. And so I think that a lot of people think it's going to be a breeze when you open the second location or the third or the fourth. But the truth is that without the proper systems and the right people in place, it sometimes is not. Your brand kind of falls apart. And so what you want to do to ensure that that brand is expanding is you yourself can't be in all locations. So
Yeah.
that's where proper systems and training comes in hand.
Yeah. And again, every time we hire a new person, we have an opportunity for them to come in and do their own thing and think they're doing a great job. But that
Hmm.
often is not what we really have in mind. We're trying, again, whatever it is that makes us special, whether we're bilingual or whether we're a STEM program, whether we're international school, whatever we're doing, Montessori school, Waldorf school, Reggio school, we want to have a really coherent experience across the board.
And I also think, Tim, a lot of the times when people, what's the reason? Why do you want to expand? I think most people initially, when they want to expand, it's usually because they want more enrollment, right? They're usually booked up and, they feel like if I just had another classroom or another building, I could fulfill that skill or that setting. But you really have to look at why you want the expansion and then you have to kind of follow through there. So expansion should follow stability. It should never follow urgency, right? So it shouldn't just be to fill enrollment, um, because having a wait list is actually a really great thing, right? There should be more of a strategic need as to why you want to expand.
Well, probably most people who do expand are doing it because they're in it as a business. They're looking to bring home greater profits or to attract outside investors. And they know that as they expand from one center to two to three to four to 12 and more, you're beginning to build up a serious business where if the profit percentage is, let's say, 8% a year, 6% a year, 12% a year, 15% a year. I've got one client that's bringing 24% year over year. The bottom line is when you go from one center to more, when you go from 100 children, 150 children, 250, 500 children, 1,000 children, you're beginning to, one, serve more families. And the actual dollars at the end of the year that can either be, kept in the corporation for further expansion or distributed as profit share among the investors, and hopefully employees are getting a share of profits as well to motivate them. The bottom line is you're just dealing with a much greater number of dollars to work with, and that's probably the biggest motivation. Again, as you said, Isabel, the real issue is just to expand for the sake of money doesn't work because if you screw up your quality and your brand goes down, you do not do yourself any favor.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. So the reality of expansion, it is not just to have more classrooms, to have more children, to have more money, more profit. It's actually more people that are going to need to be strategic leaders in your group. So you've got to not only hire warm bodies, and there is no such thing as a warm body. There are simply human beings who are working with real families and real children and with real coworkers. But we need people who can coordinate centers so that we don't need to be there all the time. And we need to put together really complex systems. We have to make absolutely sure that we know what's going on, whether we're in ratio, whether the cash flow is flowing in correctly. And as we grow, everything becomes more complex. And frankly, one of the reasons why I'm here with you, Isabel, and with you, Navneet, is you're one of the few softwares I've seen as a school administrator that I actually felt made it possible for the average non-technically oriented person to get this work done. As I often say, Illumine reminds me of my Apple iPhone. It's pretty easy to use. It's kind of intuitive, and it does a lot more than the complicated software that I've seen over the years. So we have a saying, friends don't let friends use fax or Blackbaud or ProCare, OnCare, Line Leader, whatever. Not because they can't work. They do work. It's just they're clunky in comparison with the way it can be, and I appreciate that. What do we got next? So we have the first question to ask, which is, are we ready to scale leadership and not just buying another building? So we've got the issue of, again, building up a multi-center team, an organization that has a depth of leaders and that has cultural clarity and has operational consistency. Isabel, you have lived in that world for years. I have too. Talk to me. Tell me more. What's it like to really do this?
Well, you restless nights, right? For most of you, I know what that looks like, and I can imagine. And if anybody wants to chime in and kind of share a little bit about, I'm sure you're on call 24/7, pretty much, right? You're the person who gets the calls in the middle of the nights when people call out. You're the person who, if and then if you're operational and you're managing all the schools, you're the person that anytime something happens, there's a parent concern and a director can't handle it, or a director's overwhelmed, or a director has an audit or licensing is coming. You're there. But on the back end, people don't realize that that's not all that you're doing, right? You're having to also manage not only the teams, but you're also managing the day to day of what the revenue is that's coming in. So the revenue that's coming in, that's going out, how to promote, who to succeed, where to position people, how to onboard, and ensuring that you're doing that across those multi-site locations. Because I think, again, the biggest mistake people make is that when they're in one location, they forget that they're the ones running it. And so you can't duplicate yourself. Unfortunately, we would like to, but we just can't. So that's where, scaling is a big emphasis. And that's why I say, enrollment is huge, but you never want to decide to do multi-sites just because only enrollment is a factor in it. You want to ensure that you have proper systems. And with those systems is, making sure you have programs that are tiered and ensuring that your brand is consistent throughout all locations. And how you do that is not as easy as said and done because unfortunately, again, we all are different. We're all different people, just like children are different. And so the people who you have running your locations might run things a little differently than the next person. So you're not going to see the same strategies executed at each of your locations. So building culture is extremely important from the very beginning, because if you build that culture in the beginning, I think that that will then expand in each of your locations. And as long as your brand is strong, and but what I mean by that, I mean, again, those systems, those programs, your marketing, your branding of who you are, what your teachings are, what what your scalability is going to be at the end. I think that if you pursue that and push those things, then you will be extremely successful. But you get burned out. It's a long haul. I did it for quite many years, a little over 10 years. And I for sure, and I started out as an assistant teacher, just working 20 something odd years ago. Worked my way up, got a few degrees, continued to work and push through. And I will share with you that I didn't see myself as, I never thought I was going to run a school. It wasn't what I was trying to strive for or do or be. Um, but you kind of just end up doing it because unfortunately, even the teachers, they kind of just multitask, right? We all wear many different hats. And as you wear those many different hats, people start noticing what you do. And it just kind of continued to proceed and move up. And I ended up, filling that role. And I like to say I was pretty successful. I've got some good success stories, and I still continue to push and guide multi-site centers and owners and things like that. And so I think that you just have to have the passion for it, but you have to have realistic goals.
Got it.
That's kind of what I've seen, Tim.
Well, I think with that, I would say you need patience because what I find in a lot of
100%.
organizations of all kinds is people tend to cook the way most men cook, which is they don't follow a recipe and there isn't a real sense of order. It's just sort of chaos. And some days it's really great, and some days the garlic is overwhelming. So what we're looking for is for things to happen by deliberate design. In the military, one of the things that they teach you is that everyone in the organization, they're not all equal. They all have different talents. Some are sharpshooters, some are medics, some are really good in training people. Everyone has skills, but the trick is you want as many people to be able to cross over and do the job of the entire unit. And it takes training, training, training. And so just telling people or giving them a manual is not good enough. To establish culture is both how do we treat people? Why are we here? How do we treat children? How do we treat parents? What would we do if this happens? Getting people so they just by second nature know this is how we greet a customer. This is what we do when we see a piece of trash on the ground. This is what we do if we see a child, who looks sad or alone or is really upset or is really angry. How do we appropriately in our institution, how do we intervene? And so the idea of creating a system for bringing new people in, onboarding as it's usually called, training the leaders and making sure they know how to do their job correctly, and that they're part of the culture of the institution. That's not something that happens in an hour. It's not something that happens on a 3 hour orientation at the beginning of a new term. It is an ongoing thing until it becomes second nature. And some people learn quicker. Some people walk in and they already know what they're doing. And you got to appreciate that and just you look for talent, you look for enthusiasm. Some people are better than others in terms of their natural fit, but almost anyone that wants to be there can learn to do it well. We have to see them as being capable people. We have to see them as human beings so they know that we know them, we care about them, we want them to succeed, and we are not simply treating them like replaceable widgets. This is true at every level of the organization.
And I'll add to that, Tim. I'll tell you that you'll know from the beginning when you first when the people when you're hiring them, you'll know who you're hiring and who will step into the role of leadership for you at your locations. You'll know in the very beginning. And so with that said, you keep in mind that once you have that mindset and you realize, okay, this person's going to be something within my organization, you then start molding from that very first day, right? Because again, you're building a brand, and within that brand, what you're wanting is to duplicate yourself, but you can't. So you have to start molding them for them to be successful when you're not around. And once you do that, your schools will thrive because then you have placed people in positions that will ensure that your business will always be successful because they'll take it on as their own. But that starts from the very beginning. That first conversation that you have, and you realize that spark in them, you have to start molding then and realizing what their potential can be and helping them grow that piece.
That's a good point. And I think with that, let's open up to the audience and ask, when should you
Absolutely.
expand? Feel free to open your mic or put it on the chat, whatever works for you. Yeah.
So I guess what we can ask more so is for those of you who have already expanded, um, how did you expand? What were some of your trials and tribulations going through that? And for those of you that are thinking of expanding, what are your thoughts on it? Like what are your hesitations as to why you haven't or why you want to? And you guys can unmute yourselves or you can type in the chat if you'd like, if you feel more comfortable.
Very quiet today. Teresa, you want to share anything?
Don't see it. Hi.
Hi,
Hi, I
Michael.
can share. Hi, how's it going? Thank you for this conversation. I appreciate the feedback, and I definitely resonate with this need for depth of leadership and operational consistency and the cultural piece. And I think for me, it's we've been given an opportunity to expand, and we're taking it. And so we're going from a sequential model to a scattered site model, and we're
Okay.
opening up 6 different sites.
Nice.
And we're very thankful for that. But it does give me, I feel confident because during this expansion process, we're using this as incentive to standardize our compliance model and really hone in on how do we make our processes replicated. But one thing that I am still a little hesitant about is that cultural resonance, like getting through to every layer as the depth increases, and just trying to think about how do I encourage and what types of incentives do I put in place, and how do I keep that growth when it's not just
Nice.
me now at every location.
Yeah. That's definitely a tough process, I will share with you. Now, can I ask, are you the owner or are you just the like are you the so one of my titles, I've had many titles, but one of them was managing director, which was essentially a little higher than what a regional manager would be. So I oversaw all locations that they were and then the new expansions. Are you in that position or are you in the owner position? Because then I can tell you how to kind of gear either one.
Yeah, so I am the owner, but I originally served as the um, on-site manager.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know how things grow. You have to wear
Mm-hmm.
all hats. So I was an
Mm-hmm.
implementer on site. Then I became um, a project director over one or two sites happening simultaneously. And now I'm serving as, while also owner, managing director over these six sites. And then there is opportunity for more sites beyond that. I'm comfortable with the six sites because I can at least drop in once a week with six
Mm-hmm.
sites. Like I can manage a good schedule. I feel confident I can keep that culture going. But once we expand beyond the six sites, now I need to put someone in my role now as managing director, and I need to
Mm-hmm.
take
Mm-hmm.
on something more regional. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's so you've got the right idea, and you seem like you've got the, the passion for it, and that's the first step, is obviously knowing your strengths. And so, when you initially were the on site, it's different because you know the culture that you've created there, and you know how to move within the system. And then growing now so fast into six sites, it makes it just a little bit difficult. But the beauty of it is, again, is if you start creating that culture within that team of yours that you have, and maybe that first site that you had, maybe that's your core team. Maybe those are the guys that I seen somebody else put it in the chat where, that's ideal, is promote within, right? Look at your team and see who has that potential, because they've been with you the longest and they kind of know, how you work and what you're trying to succeed, what it is that you're wanting your culture to be, what your program, your brand is. So they'll help you with that piece. And then even if you surpass those six locations, you just keep doing that, as you mentor and you put people in positions, in leadership positions, you grab somebody else and you say, okay, who in your team now do you see that has that potential? And you move them up, and then so on and so on. And then you become where you just guide your core people, right? You pop in on all your locations, but essentially what you do is you have those meetings with all your leadership, because they're now the ones that'll create that culture for each of your locations. So having systems in place to ensure that you don't have to be there all the time either, so that you can look in and see how your enrollment is doing, how your numbers are doing, what's the profit margins, you know if your team is fulfilling successfully curriculum, and the culture and questions or concerns and things like that. All of those things, if you have all those things in place, your schools will be solid. And I think, based on what you're saying, you're definitely moving in that direction.
Yeah. And one thing,
Thank
one
you
thing
so,
I've
thanks so
yeah,
much.
yeah, I've seen
Thank
across
you, Michael, for talking.
running as a company in multiple geographies. As one thing that has helped is setting system who helps you proactively monitoring instead of you having a discipline to go deeper and look at it, versus system is alerting you if anything is goes wrong. So that has helped a lot. And then, as you're saying, like weekly, you're distributing your time to have make sure there is a check-ins there to know what's going on. That I think has helped. What's your take, Tim, on that? Yeah.
Well, the idea of systems, I think, needs to be looked at a little deeper. You know, I believe that you can, how do you eat an elephant? Where do you start? You gotta pick a piece of your business and start really looking at it from a systems or an operating or a cultural point of view. How do we greet a family that's interested in our school? What's the whole process of guiding the prospective family through the process of learning about us, of getting a sense of what our school is like, and so forth? How do our classrooms get set up? What's in the classrooms? What do we do about cleanliness? What do we do if we see anything that needs maintenance or repair? What's our standard of cleanliness in the bathrooms, in the teachers' lounge, in the entryway, out on the playgrounds? How do our teachers work with a child who is sad? What's the program for the beginning of school at the first child arriving early in the morning until the end of the day? Do we serve organic lunch or snack, or do we have a catering service? Everything about it is an opportunity to build a block of who we are. And what you're trying to do, in my opinion, is standardize it as much as you can. Now, Isabel and I are different people. Nav's a different person. We're all different in our marriages, in our loves, in our with our children, with our employees. Everyone that's in our business is a human being. But what we want to do is get them dancing to the same uh, choreography. We're looking for coordinated experience, and we again have to assume that if they're not doing it correctly, they're not necessarily defying us. They just don't know yet how to do it. We have to have a system for teaching them how we want things done and doing it in a way that makes them feel that we have confidence that they can, that they're capable, that we want them to succeed, and that we're patient enough to guide them through the learning journey. And we have to keep working at it. It's not something you do once, it's ongoing. This is how we do things here.
Got it. Okay,
If I
so let's
may impart again,
yeah, sure.
sorry,
Yeah.
Hi,
Go ahead, go
Michael.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
hi. If I may ask you three again, because it brought up something else that I've had as a concern, is and Tim, you touched on a really important piece, which is the education and learning and investing in your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a dual priority of investing in technology for Nav. You mentioned like the systems thinking, the depth of thinking, and so I'm seeing technology as that solution to allow that kind of systems process measures to be seen, and so that I can have the time to go deeper when needed. But I also
Mm-hmm.
see a desire for my people to want to have a path set before them where they know they're learning, they know they're doing a good job, and so I want to be able to like somehow assess how they're doing periodically without
Mhm.
overbearing them. And I would like to educate them on what we would like to be seen, and allow them a path of growth. And I haven't yet found a perfect tool to do these things.
Well, again,
Mm.
yeah, you have to put together a system that works for you. If you were running Montessori schools, there'd be at least a pre-made plan of how we normally do it. If you're part of a franchise or you've already got a culture, you'd probably have that worked out. And that's part of what you're building, Michael. So I think you're asking exactly the right question. Isabel will have experience from her own past. But I'd say that what you're looking to do is figure out how do other people do it, and how can I, as I begin to expand from one center to six, how can I put together a system
Hey, remember
that
the
will be
goldfish? Are you talking about the goldfish?
uh,
Huh?
the goldfish. Whoever's doing goldfish, you're not muted. Um, the bottom line, Michael, is you're putting together a system. And this is the area where people like Isabel or I may be able to help you as consultants, because I think, Isabel, you also consult
I
on your
do.
own. We
Yes.
help people like you plan all this out, look at how other people do it, and basically take you through a Harvard MBA type process that's practical for your evolving business.
Mm-hmm. Where essentially what we do is we look at your system as a whole, what your brand is, and how to expand that brand throughout your locations, um, and ensuring that education piece. So, creating a system, because it's all down to systems, right? Creating a system where you're not going to be essentially someone who is going to be a micromanager, um, and you're because being a micromanager takes a lot of work, right? And the goal is for you not to have more work, right? If you have to constantly look over your people to ensure that they're doing the work the way or provided the tools that you've given them, then you're having to do double the work. So the goal is for you to kind of step back, observe what they're doing in a way that doesn't make them feel uncomfortable, but gives them the tools to thrive and that education piece. And so ensuring that that culture is set that way and looking at it as a whole. So that's kind of what we do on that end. We look at those things and we kind of help you come up with a plan and then coach your teams to get to that point of where how you want them to thrive in your system that you're trying to design, and we help you with that piece,
Just
and then the
yeah.
technology piece, if I may, that's where that will also allow you to kind of stand back as well, right? Because you can monitor all of that on your end without having to physically be at each location and ensuring that your schools are being successful and profitable.
Yeah, and just to add on it, Michael, like that's where this combination works, where we have experts working along with the company, the Illumine, which designed for this kind of scale where you're looking at as an operation. So we can help you, and like Isabel, Tim can advise in terms of on the training side of it at the site, how the systems can be implemented. While the system easy enough to implement and capable enough to handle this kind of scale is where we can help.
One other thing, I work with centers all over the nation, schools and centers, and at the early childhood level, when I talk to people, usually what I hear is, we're using all kinds of curriculum. We're just kind of patching stuff together. Clarity is the key to success. Having a very clear, coherent plan of how we do things, what we teach, how we teach,
Mm-hmm.
everything about the institution. The more you organize it and systematize it in a manner that really works for you, whether you're Reggio Emilio, whether you're play-based, whether you're Montessori or Waldorf, the more you're doing things well, because money follows excellence. The more you are committed to doing the job right, the more likely you are in any market to be incredibly successful because it's more than just being there for families. It's more than just providing a service of warehousing children. We are supporting families by helping their children to feel safe and loved and seen and honored, but we're also there to help those children become all that they can possibly be. And that's the educational program.
Got it. Just looking at time, yeah. Just moving next to that, Tim. Yeah, I think that's what.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we'd like to tell us in the chat how many of you are already running multiple centers and how many? How many of you are planning to open a second location, but you haven't done it yet, or you're in the process? How many of you are considering expansion in the next few years? And how many of you are just toying around with the idea?
Holly's got one.
Yep. I see, which
Anna's
means,
got three.
I'm running three. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
So there are a lot of people who are
That's
exploring.
awesome.
Interesting. Okay, let's go next then. Yeah.
Sure. We do want to remind you, one of the things that, again, Illumine was designed for that I really appreciate is it was designed to allow a central office to coordinate multiple centers from one instance of the software. So you have both the local distribution and you got the central office. And that was something that really impressed me, along with how incredibly easy it is to use for your staff who may not have English as their primary language, who may not be the best at written communication. AI really makes it possible for them to communicate much more effectively than I've seen in the past. So, so maturity of checkpoints. In other words, look for these things before you go expanding further. One, is your enrollment stable? If you're in a time where you're seeing that your enrollment is beginning to erode because of maybe a change in funding or there's a major employer in the community that's closed down or laid a bunch of people off, probably not the best point to put yourself out there and expand further. You want to be sure that you've got a good leadership team. Not everyone has the ability to be a good leader. They don't necessarily want to work that hard, but you're definitely looking for people like that. You want to pay attention to them. You want to bond them to you, and you want to turn them into agents of what you're trying to accomplish. You've got to have really good coordinated operating systems. And your classrooms have got to be consistent. If you're running around playing whack-a-mole, because sometimes it's going okay and sometimes it's little and loud and chaotic, or teachers just aren't doing what you hope they would do, you haven't figured out how to get your culture in order first. So those are important milestones. So if everything depends on you, as Isabel said, probably not the right time to go out and expand further. Isabel?
And I think that's hard because obviously when you're the culture of the place, right? When you create it and you see how well it starts to run, you look at things and you're like, I can do this, I can duplicate this. And you can. But if it's funny, Tim, I meant to interject earlier when you said an analogy about when you cook, guy cooks, right? Well, I could tell you one better is, everybody has that, that older person, their grandmother or their mother, who, is the best cook in the family, and all the holidays, everybody comes there to eat, right? And that matriarch cooks without recipes. There is no recipes, right? There is no system, at least not that's one that's written that anybody knows of, right? That dinner only ever comes out as great as it does. Why? Because she does it, right? She handles everything. She may let everybody else have a little part in playing in it, but at the end of the day, the food, it gets cooked the way it does, and everybody comes together the way they do because of that one person. The problem with that is that, unfortunately, if she didn't coach or train everyone under her, when she's long gone, those holidays become a little grimmer, right? And so when we think of expansion and looking at all of our locations, we need to look at it as a whole, as how can we again create that culture, because you can't be the culture. You can start the culture, you can implement what it is you want, and you can mold them to be the leaders that you want them to be. But at the end, you have to be able to put in that work to ensure that they're growing and maturing in their leadership roles so that the schools are functional, right? Because you can't be there at all times, but you can keep an eye on it and you can be present. You just have to make sure that you maintain that piece as to, that you have the right people in place. That's always going to be the best point of reference, is ensuring that you have the right people in each of your systems, in each of your locations, in your schools, that fit the role that you need them to do to motivate the rest of your teams. Because if you don't, you will overwhelm yourself with having to be there and do it all at once.
Yeah. I can see Glenita
Well,
is,
well said.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Very well said, Isabel. Very well said. And just to echo on what you said, you're only as good as the seeds that you plant. I'm going to repeat that
100%.
again. You are only as good as the seeds that you plant. And it's not just about planting those seeds. What are we doing to water them? What
Mm-hmm.
are we doing to are we being intentional when we hire our team? Grow from within. That's always such a key thing that I like to echo into people's mind. We want to try our best to grow from within because we're establishing a strong culture. I know at times we might look elsewhere to find those people to fill in those roles, but it's very crucial to be intentional with the team that you accrue. And what are you doing as their leader to water them and nurture them to become your empire as you continue to grow in the ECE space?
Very well said, Lanita.
Okay, let's go to the next. Yeah, Tim.
I see that Amy's asked a Montessori question. I'm just putting my phone number in the chat for anyone who wants
Yeah.
to speak to me. But Amy, in particular, if you're running a Montessori school, you and I need to talk. Okay. By the way, I'm curious, how many of you on this call are currently using illumine, or whether you're using another software? Okay, signals that you may be ready. This is sort of the corollary to what we just said before. Your centers are running smoothly. You don't need to be there watching every minute. You're not having to nag people. You're not asking questions of how can I get my teachers to do what I want them to do. Secondly, the teachers understand and they embody the very things that you're trying to deliver for children and families, the way they treat the parents in your school, the way they treat each other. I mean, they could be the best teacher in the world, but if they're awful to the people that work with them in the classroom, that doesn't cut it. And if they don't like being bossed around, if they get upset whenever you try to coach them or guide them, that's not okay either. You need people that work together smoothly. And by the way, anything living is trouble. So you got to assume the people you employ are not going to be easy. You're looking for the ones that work well. Families, they really understand what you're all about and they see the value. There are lots of families that are willing to pay you money, but they don't really appreciate you. They don't love you. They want to know, what have you done for me lately? You're looking for families who ask, what can I do to help? And who show gratitude, not only to you as the boss, but to all your people, including the newest person who's there first thing in the morning, maybe by him or herself. We don't want people to treat the janitor as if he or she is not a full human being. We're looking for people that really care. We're looking for systems that are well documented and they're replicable. I so appreciate, Isabel, your metaphor of grandma in the kitchen. And if she didn't have it written down, she doesn't teach the daughters how to do it, it's going to die when she dies. That is so true. And this is the big one. Many people don't expand because they can't figure out how to get the money. They just don't do it. And it could be they're
Mm-hmm.
spending all the profits. It could be they're not saving. It could be they haven't developed a relationship with their bankers or with their investors. You really got to have capital and learning how to get that capital, of how to communicate and prepare a business proposal or a lending proposal is really an important part of our skill as school leaders. You've got to have the money to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Isabel, why don't you take this one?
Warning signs. Expansion becomes risky when obviously the founder solves every problem. How many of you can raise your hand to that? I'm sure. Um, Teaching quality varies widely between classrooms. Um, that obviously comes in again in training, professional development. Systems exist only in people's heads, right? Um, but we know that that's not true, right? We need systems. Systems have to, for your schools to be successful, you have to have systems in place. And culture is fragile. Man, I will tell you, I've went in and helped schools, that were getting ready to close their doors, turn around and become profitable, and go from 20 something students to 150 something students in less than a year. But I will share with you that and the school was great, the curriculum was great, the staff was great, the culture was not fragile, it was broken, right? When you have people who don't value your work, your teachers then start to walk away, and teachers are the heart of of your schools, because they are what your parents see and know, and they are what your children, the children that you're teaching, are, they're their first response. And so if you take that culture away, they drag that on into the classrooms, and so that it becomes not only a fragile system but a broken one. And then lack of adequate capital. Like he said, without capital, your school can't operate. You need the money to run your operations on a day to day. And if you're looking to expand, and again, or you have already expanded, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. I will tell you that analogy does work in some cases, but then it becomes a cycle. Um, so essentially, you want to ensure that you have the capital sitting there for you to be able to support all locations that you're having in place. So scaling is very important, um, especially on the multi-site level.
And I can relate this not only to the childcare center, to any businesses out there.
Every,
These are common warning signs to look at it when you're looking to expand.
mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe just teaching qualities changes in terms of how you're not teaching as kids, but like teaching employees, like whatever they're doing about their job. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
important.
Yeah.
This is what they teach you in MBA school.
This-
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this is the
The
non-negotiable.
non-negotiable.
Yeah. Go ahead,
What are
Isabel.
those, Tim? I was gonna say, what are those, Tim? The non-negotiables.
I know what mine would be. I'm not sure what yours would be. Um,
Well, again, I think it's non-negotiables are obviously, what once you've created your system and you know how you want to operate your school, right? Um, that's definitely, you have to create your non-negotiables, and creating a philosophy that you live by. That's something that your school have to operate under, right? So if they don't believe in your philosophy, then I don't know why they're there, right? um, Teacher training is a definite must. On, and it has to be ongoing. It can't just be, they came on, you taught them, this is what we teach, this is our curriculum, this is what it is, and then you throw them to the wolves. It can't be that way. It has to be ongoing. I still do. I used to tell a lot of teachers and directors that, when you first come into a job or a position, as you're standing there, you have to understand that just like children, right? It's ever learning. We're in an industry where children are ever learning. They're always learning something new, right? And the world around us is always evolving. And so with that, we need to evolve and we need to learn. And so we have to expect that of our teachers as well. So we have to provide that because some of them are not fortunate. They're working there sometimes. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen teachers work 10, 12 hours with you, right? You have call outs and they're there. They're standing by your side. So at what point do they get that time to sit and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do to elevate my education. This is what I'm going to do to be able to understand my program more. You have to be able to create those systems and provide that information for them. And then observation and communication and culture. Communication culture is huge. One of the biggest reasons why schools sometimes don't succeed is that lack of communication, right? Not listening, not observing, not understanding what your school needs, not understanding what your team needs, not understanding what families need, what children need. Uh, we are multifaceted. Unfortunately, we have to be everywhere at once, and we have to understand everything. And so, in order to do that, communication is key all the way through. And then classroom setup and integrity. I think that plays a huge role, right? Um, just like I use this as an analogy, right? I like to shop at both Target and Walmart, right? But which one do you prefer to walk into sometimes, right? Which one do you know you can get customer service at, right? And so the way your classrooms are set up, how your school is set up, the integrity of it, how it looks, what the model is, what the materials are, all of that plays a huge role in how you want your school to succeed, ensuring that people. I used to walk into classrooms and tell teachers, this is your home. You need this to look like your home. It needs to, and when I say that, because everybody lives differently, right? You want it to be presentable. I used to have a thing that someone in my life mentored me. We used to say it was called companies coming, right? So your home could be spotless. I could walk through my home right now and show you. I have a little OCD here. But when company is coming, you still somehow do what? You go back and clean again, even though your home is already clean, but it's presentable. It fits the part, right? Because first impressions are everything. So, you want to hold your standards to a mark. And yes, we work with children. They're messy. So messy is not the point. And, it's not, we know that children's messes are children's messes. And that means children are engaged. It's more of, the appearance of ensuring that the quality is there and that it's being maintained and cleaned and hygienic. So those kinds of things.
I think we have.
Absolutely. I'm
Sorry, go
just going to throw one more thing in here. I've seen people who are running these kinds of businesses who they worry about money, and every hour that goes by, it's either overtime or it's just more money. You've really got to be prepared to invest in your school. If you don't have the money for it, you need to figure out a way to gather the money. You may not have it immediately. You can't get blood out of a turnip. But the point is that you're not being stupid if you're investing in your people or if you're investing in your facilities and your program. Money
Yep.
follows excellence. And the other thing that you've got to watch out for that's a spin-off on what you were saying, Isabel, is the idea that what you can't do is run a shopping center. A shopping center is
Mm-hmm.
a big mall that rents out space to different stores and they're all doing their own thing. They're all selling
Yep.
what they want to sell. You're hiring people who are going to be part of a coordinated team, and every single person on your payroll is part of that team. The bookkeeper, the secretary at the front desk, the nurse, if you've got a nurse, the person who's the janitor, every single person is interacting with your customers. They're interacting with the children. They're interacting with the staff. And then the last thing is human beings can get aggravated with each other very, very easily. They come in, they don't feel well, they get aggravated, they feel like they're being picked on, they're not advancing. Part of your goal is to help people to calm down and find a happy place, even when they're not necessarily feeling their best or where they're not really feeling that everything is going perfectly. We're trying to make sure that our staff is okay with each other, and they're especially okay with the kids, and they're really okay
Yeah.
with the families of our school.
Got it. I think this you guys have already covered, so I'll skip this.
We have.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Similarly, I think this you have talked a lot, like in terms of investing in your team,
Teacher
making sure
training.
their onboarding, their professional
Yep.
development is not afterthought. You're continuously investing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is
And I got to say on that last one, there's investing and there's investing. Amy, who's running a Montessori school, probably knows better than most. I mean, there's CDA level of investing, which all of us have to do if you're running early childhood in the United States, and then there's programs that take 1,000 hours of training. Uh, MACD accredited, university MBA master's degrees program in early childhood education. There are different levels of standard. The better your standard, whether you're Waldorf or Reggio or Montessori or play-based, whatever you're trying to do, the better your program is to prepare your teachers and continue their education, the better the experience your children are going to get, the better your school will
And
be.
And
correct.
I will say, as someone who I actually I teach the CDA, um, you know, you can go to many places to get your CDA, and some will pass you through, but really a program where you are going to learn something from it, and you're going to ensure that your team is credentialed, right? Because I've seen schools that are successful with just experienced people, but they're still stuck in what they know only, right? Because again, that piece about learning more, evolving with the world, you kind of stand still. So you want to make sure that, like Tim said, that your team is solid in that sense, that that you're making sure that your team is learning and growing. And the way to do that is making sure that they get in programs and get these certified credentials based off of what it is that your curriculum is on, or what your culture is. Sometimes schools create their own certifications and things like that, as long as they're accredited. Um, so making sure you're going into those zones and things, and thinking outside the boxes, how you can get your schools to be all one in that perspective.
This next slide, I think, deserves a topic, a webinar all of its own, because whether you're a
Yeah.
Montessori school or any other, the purpose of observation, how it's really done, what do you do with it, is a whole thing. But for the moment, since I know we're short of time, let's just agree it's really not about just teaching lessons. It's about knowing the children, following the child, figuring out listening to the kids, listening to the parents, listening to your other people on the staff, and figuring out a way to build what's going on in your room, in your school, at your location. It's all about being present and listening and observing and just being awake.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
And then communicating same to the parents so that they are also on the same level of understanding that this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This I think you've already touched. I think you talked
We
about
have,
yeah.
again, we could go
Yes.
into great detail on this.
I was going to say all of these, essentially running multi schools, all of these are lessons in one, right? Because each of these categories can be a lesson or a webinar in itself, a training in itself. We spoke a little bit about classroom integrity, how they should be set up, and based on what your systems are, or what your curriculum, or your passion is. And same for observations and lesson planning. You really have to find what it is your niche is, or what it is that you're going to be great at. Whether that is Montessori, Waldorf, Play Learn, or Reggio Emilio. You have to really look at what you decide. There's many different types of curriculums out there, many different types of cultures and how people learn and children learn. There's a ton of studies on what's the best way and what's not. The truth of the matter is that the early learning industry has just recently went through a shift in the last, I want to say, 5 or 6 years, where now they're starting to be really recognized as educators, right? We've always been that. We've always been educators, but the truth is that no one really, outside of our world, no one saw us as educators. And so now people are starting to realize, wait a second, they really are onto something. So really doing your research on what kind of program it is that you're wanting to continue to showcase and how to expand that. Um, I know for some, I did see earlier on, I think it was Jennifer or Jen or somebody who had stated that they had 11 locations, but 3 of them were Montessori. I think that's beautiful. I worked for a company that had not only Montessori schools, but also had Reggio schools and also had, a different type of academic high scope schools. And so finding that balance on how you're going to execute your brand and your philosophy throughout those multi different type of locations, and then also not only their different locations but also different uh criterias and philosophies that they're following. So finding that niche and then making sure that you expand on that.
Yeah. I think we're almost running on the time and we have a lot of more things to talk about, but I don't think we'll be able to finish it today.
I
Uh,
think we could do it. Go ahead, we got 3 minutes.
okay, we'll continue on that. If not, then what we can do is maybe take and check with the audience to have a part two of the series to continue double down of it, they finding it useful. What do you
Hmm.
say, Tim and Isabella?
Well, what I would
Yeah.
say first, the first one we ever did was the 9 areas of a school and how they're all coordinated. And what Isabel and I and you are saying basically is we're going through the 9 areas and we're saying
Hmm.
that as you expand to multiple centers, you've got to think about, how do you want your facilities to work? How are you handling money? How are you handling pricing? What kind of family do you want to work with? What kind of program do you want to run? And as Isabel just said, if you're going to have multiple philosophies, so, Montessori and non-Montessori under
Hmm.
one corporate banner, that's possible, but you've got to have a real plan of how you're doing that so that you
Correct.
don't end up with just a mishmash. So whatever you're doing, there has to be a plan, there has to be replicable, it has to be sustainable. The customer has to know what they're getting into so that they're not disappointed. Boy, did we have a lot of content for this week. Wow. Uh, so I think part two has to be done.
Part two has to be done. So, and that's why I just got to this slide saying that core system that needs to be done before you start expanding. And it has the pillars that you talked about, Tim, exactly saying that you have to look at it not only at one area, but a lot of other things that's around it. Correct. So I think that we can do. As I think we are almost time now in terms of the wrapping up this session. I have just one like as we have been enabling a lot of multi-center organization, I just wanted to show a small video how Illumine has been helping because I can see a couple of questions around it, like what Illumine has to offer when it comes to the multi-center operation and how uniquely we help on that area. So I'll play a quick video, but then we'll continue try to reach out and set up another part two session of this so that we can continue building on. I think there are a lot of things that I've skipped quickly just to come to this. Yeah.
Start your day with a pulse on performance. See how each centre is doing at a glance. Track daily check-ins, active children and staff counts, and occupancy. Track student distribution across centres and identify top performers instantly. Want an insight into student retention data and want to see it centrally and in real time? Also possible. View revenue and collections in real time, no more messy spreadsheets. Track amount collected per month by every centre and keep tab on the outstanding amount. What's more, you can even track your monthly revenue against your expense. Start your day with a pulse on performance.
Sorry.
View revenue and collections in real time, no more messy spreadsheets. Track amount collected per month by every centre and keep tab on the outstanding amount. What's more, you can even track your monthly revenue against your expense.
Something going wrong.
Start your day.
But the idea is
It wants to focus on that clearly.
yeah, he wants to focus on that basically three things that you can clearly look at in the center level dashboard, multi-center dashboard, each center, how is they're doing on billing and collection, or even the expenses side of it. Then you can also look at the quality, how it's going in terms of the parent communication of it. Third is the enrollment, which is the core piece, how the enrollment is doing. And the fourth is overall compliance of when you're running these centers. I think Michael touched on that, saying that it's a big piece when you started to scale. And that's where Illumine helps you to kind of highlighting it quickly while we're working with like guideposts, which is like 100 locations across them. Now, their single point of focus is just to go and look at those Illumine reports easily and then focus on the ones where you're actually finding an issue, where they need your time, and then go to them directly. With that, I'll take a pause here. Any closing note from you, Tim or Isabel?
Well,
Isabel, I'll
if
let
I
you
could,
go first. Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, if I could chime in really quickly, I noticed some people asked about the observation tools in the
Yeah.
system. So Illumine is more than just a billing structure. It doesn't, we do have, you can actually do lesson planning on it. You can do lesson planning, you can do observations. Anna, did you have something to say? I'm so sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, sorry.
So it does have more than just the billing piece. It has inquiry management, how to book your tours, link it to your website, forms, all you can digitalize all your forms, enrollment packets, registration, day-to-day tasks, scheduling. So it's got quite a few things involved in it. Really great work. I think that the developers have really thought about everything that someone on the center level, but also on the owner side of it, someone who's operating it can definitely be transparent and see everything. So if it is something that you are looking to do, if you have any questions on it, please feel free to reach out. We've got lots of information. We'd love to walk you through some stuff.
And I'd say that this has been a very interesting topic. And I think that there's a lot of you out there that are either in the process of running centers, building centers, or looking at the possibility of expanding. And there's a lot that we all have to learn from each other. I'm a great believer in the idea of creating a circle where we can talk with each other, learn from people that have been doing it for years, but also talk to each other about what you're going through right now as you do it. So we really appreciate you. And Nav, thanks for giving us the opportunity to gather with these good people and have this kind of conversation.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Isabel, for joining in. I think I've
Thank
just
you
put it on
guys.
the screen for this QR code to download this strategy. That's where we've got your inputs, also the market study and the customer's input who have been already operating. Feel free to scan this and download it, get the exclusive access to this. We have not yet launched for everyone, so you're the first ones to get access to this. Okay, so with that, we are towards the end. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in
Thank
today.
you.
It was really helpful. We'll try to set up the second one. If you have any feedback, feel free to share before we wrap it up.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Tim.
Hi, Isabel. I'll see you in Washington, D.C. next week.